Welcome everyone, this is Andres Restart, and this time we are talking about a number of games that we already know about that may be coming to Nintendo Switch 2. Now Nintendo has yet to officially announce this system. We expect it to happen sometime next year, this announcement, and so we'll finally start getting some confirmations on what games are actually coming to the system. But there's a number of games that have already been announced that seem like likely candidates to be available on Nintendo's next generation console. For a variety of reasons, there's different hints out there that seem to be suggesting so. And so we're going to be talking about all the different games we know about that seem to have a strong chance of coming to Nintendo Switch 2. But before going forward, let me point out that we are aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. Leaving a like is also super helpful. And enjoy the ride as we talk about Nintendo every day. So there are two different big games that are rumored to be coming to Nintendo Switch 2 according to Necrofilipe from the Universo Nintendo. One of those is Far Cry 7, and the other is the next Monster Hunter game, which, at the Game Awards, was recently revealed. It's Monster Hunter Wilds. And part of what's interesting about these games is that they are fairly ambitious AAA efforts. And so if these kinds of games can come to Nintendo Switch 2, that implies that other major games could make it as well. And this seems to go alongside a lot of what we've heard about the Switch 2 and what it's capable of. We had the reports of the tech demos that were showing off what the Switch 2 could hypothetically do, like with the Matrix Unreal 5 engine demo, and where it reportedly had better ray tracing effects than the initial PS5 version of this Matrix demo. That isn't to say that the Switch 2 is more powerful than the PS5, but there may be some features that are more advanced that will allow the Switch 2 to output games that run fairly well, considering that it's going to be a hybrid console. And when we also factor in the other tech demo we heard about, where apparently Switch 2 specs would be able to run Breath of the Wild at 4K, 60 frames per second with minimal to no loading times, that suggests a lot about what the capabilities of the system will be. Now, while Monster Hunter Wilds may have been my personal favorite announcement at the Game Awards, there were other announcements that showed up at the Game Awards that I'm keeping my eye on as well. Not just because they seem pretty exciting, but also because I have a feeling they're going to be coming to Nintendo Switch 2. Some of those have to do with the Sega announcements. Sega announced 5 different games in one single trailer, including a new Crazy Taxi, which I find to be crazy in a good way. And some of these games may end up on Nintendo Switch itself because not all of them look extremely complex, but this new wave of games that Sega is working on are being portrayed as their next generation of games. And there wasn't a specific platform listed. Considering the healthy relationship between Nintendo and Sega, what we're apparently hearing about what Switch 2 will be able to do, and just how these games look, they look pretty cool and fun, but they don't look like something extremely ambitious that we couldn't envision even the Switch running if they were scaled down significantly. I'm willing to wager that most, if not all, these games will make it onto Nintendo's next generation console. But there's another game that was shown off during the Game Awards that have a lot of people talking about a potential Switch 2 version, and that's Visions of Mana. Now, Visions of Mana had specified consoles that it will be coming to, and it did not include the Nintendo Switch. But what's weird about that is that the Mana games have been performing really well on Nintendo Switch. We've gotten a lot of them, they've been selling extremely well. The Mana series is really big on Nintendo now. So to see Visions of Mana, the next big entry to the series, not coming to Nintendo Switch, it's really a bit of a head scratcher. Now you can make the argument that they just have such an ambition for this game and the scale of this game, it just wouldn't be really feasible to bring it over to the Switch. But considering that Square Enix has already put out open world games on the Nintendo Switch that look similar, such as, for example, Dragon Quest XI's, in other words, they already have a solid engine going for this, I have a hard time believing they wouldn't be able to take a game like Visions of Mana that does look fantastic, but is clearly an art style that probably would scale pretty well onto the Nintendo Switch if you were to just scale down the resolution, the draw distance, and other assets, especially because there is a PS4 version that's a prior gen console. So I'm kind of thinking that maybe Visions of Mana will be coming to a Nintendo console, just not the Nintendo Switch, but rather its successor, what we've been calling the Nintendo Switch 2. And what's even more interesting about Visions of Mana in contrast to the other games we've already discussed, Visions of Mana is slated for 2024, and there's been a lot of talk about Switch 2 coming out in 2024. There's the reports and all of that, and so maybe later sometime next year they will announce Visions of Mana coming to Nintendo Switch 2 at the same time as the other systems. But there are other games that are coming out in 2024 that may also have a Switch 2 version. So we've already talked about the color button theory, but I'll put a video in the eye above and also in the end screen if you want more information specifically on this theory and how it ties to Nintendo Switch 2. But there's a number of games we've seen that seem to have this button layout, such as Fashion Designer, East Nordics, Trails Through Daybreak, but even also Super Mario RPG and Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door. Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door is a Nintendo-published remake that's coming sometime next year, and there's a speculation that with this one in particular, especially since it's a game that was initially a GameCube release, and it's not using the GameCube button format, neither is it using the Switch button format or overlay, as we've seen throughout pretty much every single game on Switch outside of some of the ones we just mentioned, it's kind of weird. So we're thinking that it might be a cross-gen title. In other words, there will be a Switch 2 version of Thousand Year Door. That's the speculation here. And as for the other games mentioned, it may be the case that they will be playable on Switch 2 because we believe it's backwards compatible, and that's maybe why we're seeing some of these newer style of button overlays for these Switch games. But going beyond those, we learned about some recent games that have a new release timing. So Deca Police has been delayed past 2024, and Fantasy Life has been given a summer 2024 release timing. But what's weird about this one is that when we go to the official imagery that they showed for Fantasy Life, where they talk about this worldwide simultaneous release summer 2024, they also say supported platforms in the Nintendo Switch, and then in parentheses, other platforms undecided. Now this came out during a Japanese cast, so there may be some translation issues here. Perhaps they mean to be announced consoles, or to be determined. But what it definitely tells us is that there are other platforms this game is coming to outside of the Switch, and it would be weird to not announce the other platforms if the other platforms are already on the market. And so there's a lot of speculation that this may also be a Nintendo Switch 2 game. It's possible that they are just going to put this game onto other platforms later down the road and they just weren't sure which ones they'd be putting it on, so they could still be in negotiations. But it's still uncertain here, and I do think there's a chance we could see this game on Switch 2. And while it may not be a AAA release, it is interesting to say the least. But I think it's fair to say that there are other AAA games that are on the way for Nintendo's next generation console. One that we know about for sure is Call of Duty. Nintendo and Microsoft have entered a 10-year binding agreement where Call of Duty will be coming to Nintendo platforms. And while Call of Duty has not come to Nintendo Switch yet, likely because of the spec range that the Call of Duty games aim for and the Switch being so far behind, but with the Switch 2, that seems way more conceivable, and Call of Duty has to come to Nintendo platforms now, so if it doesn't come to the Switch, what else would it be coming to? The Nintendo Switch 2. But I also wouldn't be surprised if they find a way to remaster an older Call of Duty or significantly scale down a more current Call of Duty so they can also have something on Nintendo Switch 1. Now there's another recently showcased AAA game that I think could be coming to Nintendo Switch 2. And out of all the ones that we've discussed, this is the one that I may be most skeptical on, that I feel is more of a toss-up. The others, I would say, are on above a 50% chance, in my opinion, at least to be playable when you factor in backwards compatibility. But this game I have in mind here may not come to any Nintendo console, but based off what we've heard of Switch 2, I have an optimism, and that's Grand Theft Auto 6. Grand Theft Auto 6 is clearly a cutting-edge game. It's truly a next-generation title. And so if Switch 2 can get this game, that'll be very telling for the kinds of games Switch 2 should be expected to get moving forward. Switch 2 getting Monster Hunter Wilds and Far Cry 7 are one thing, but GTA 6 is another. It's not just about graphics, it's about how much storage this game can take up, and Nintendo, perhaps infamously, doesn't have a good history of great storage capacity. The GameCube had smaller discs, they couldn't hold that much data, and now Nintendo is using cartridges which just don't hold as much data as current disc options, and they are more expensive. Now, it's not as bad as it used to be, like in the N64 era, where Nintendo lost a lot of third-party support because of their choice to use cartridges, but there still have been some challenges. There's been a lot of talk that Rockstar wanted to bring over more games, but because there wasn't the option to have a highly available, very affordable 64GB cartridge, we didn't see some Rockstar games. Now, we did get Red Dead Redemption. There is the GTA collection, so it isn't like Rockstar doesn't put anything on Switch. And there is a recent rumor from our buddy Nintendo Prime that Red Dead Redemption 2 is on its way for Switch 2. So we at least have some reason to think that Rockstar will bring over some games, but the big question is, will we get their biggest release, Grand Theft Auto 6? I think where there's a will, there's a way, and after the success of the Nintendo Switch, I think third parties are going to be even more willing to support this console, especially if Nintendo comes out strong and is following a similar format. Now, one final game that's officially announced that I think will be coming to Nintendo Switch 2 is Metroid Prime 4. Now, we know it's coming to Nintendo Switch, but there's a lot of speculation that it will be a cross-gen title. It's something that feels very similar to the Breath of the Wild situation or the Twilight Princess situation. Both of these Zelda games were in development for a long time during their respective generations, and by the time they were coming out, it was at the very end when the next big Nintendo console was about to release. So what did Nintendo do? They put it out for both systems. Metroid Prime 4, there is a growing belief that this game is close to coming out. And so with a lot of talk of Switch 2 coming out in 2024, it feels like the timing is aligning here. And perhaps Nintendo is going to try to maximize Metroid Prime 4 sales by having two different versions, one for the Nintendo Switch and another for the Nintendo Switch 2. And so there are the several games that are already announced that may be coming to Nintendo Switch 2. What do you think? Is there anything that I missed that is already announced that seems likely to be coming to Nintendo's next generation console? Maybe we could get ports of, say, for example, Resident Evil 4 Remake or Elden Ring? That would be nice. But let me know what you guys think in the comments below. This is Andres Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.